Startup Huddle, and you'll hear from people who are doing it in their city right now and how it's going. So at any point, we'll stop for questions, but raise your hand if you have them, and if it makes sense, we'll stop at that point. And if not, at the end, all of us will be here and ready to answer questions. The goal of our session today is for all of you to go home and launch Startup Huddle. So we're here to answer any question that you have, and that's what we want. Cool? My name is Yuval. I'm the director of Startup Huddle. I work with Global Entrepreneurship Network, I'm going to be introducing Kim Lane, who is Kim Lane does a lot of things. Kim is started as a Startup Huddle organizer, the 1 Million Cups program in the United States. She then moved to managing 1 Million Cups regionally, and now she's an ambassador and a mentor to all of these guys as they're launching in their city. So she's going to help me with this presentation. Let's see if, oh, awesome. And then we're going to bring up all of our other ambassadors. Startup Huddle, to give you a little bit of a history. Do you want to join me on stage? We can do, oh, actually, you know what? Sorry. Startup Huddle was organized, started in 2013 as the 1 Million Cups program out of the Kauffman Foundation. Our friend Cameron was working there, and Kauffman said to him, hey, can you just get to know the entrepreneurs in the community and tell us, what they need and what they're working on? And so he said, all right, I'll go have coffee with them and talk to them. And then he started inviting his friends to the coffee chats, and then he started just opening the coffee chats to everyone who wanted to come, and he realized that regular meetings started to allow for people to be, the more you know, the more you can be helpful, the more you can support each other. And that's how 1 Million Cups was born. And that was in 2013. And now it's 2019, and Startup Huddle, 1 Million Cups is in 170-ish cities around the United States, and it's in about 40 cities around the world now. So we've taken the program, people were knocking on our door saying, we saw this in America, we want to do it in other countries, and we said, great, let's expand it outside of the US, and that's how Startup Huddle was born. And actually, Steven, who's sitting up here, is the one who kind of transitioned it into a global program, and then when I took over, we kept onboarding cities, and that was a year and a half, 2 years ago, and so it's exciting growth. So that's a little bit of the background of the program, and our plan in the next year is to continue to expand to more and more cities. So thank you for being here for that. I hope that the formatting is good on the other slides, but Startup Huddle is a monthly program. It's a free program for entrepreneurs that are involved and anyone in the ecosystem that's in the community. And what we want to do is just encourage, again, peer-to-peer mentorship and support. And what you don't see here is that it's every entrepreneur gives a 6-minute presentation and then a 20-minute Q&A opportunity from the community to support them with any questions that they have. And we're going to do a huddle here so you can understand how it works. But you can ask any question that you want, and you can offer any support that you have, and that kind of gets the conversation going. And an earlier session that we had today, talking about Startup Huddle, there was a really interesting point that was brought up that we've never talked about before, but I think it's really valuable, a new piece of the conversation, which is about creating intimacy and a sense of belonging for the community so they can feel like there's not as much competition and there's more collaboration. So in countries where people are shy, maybe they're not ready to share their idea, or they're worried about their idea being stolen, or they don't want to fail and tell people that they failed, they don't want to ask for help to seem weak. The goal of Startup Huddle is to start creating this feeling of we belong in a community together and we're in it together. We're not competing against each other, we're here to help. So Startup Huddle is trying to do that, and we're doing it on a monthly basis so that it's not something that just happens once and then it's done. It happens regularly, and people can come. One time they're presenting, another time they're sitting in the audience, the next time they're helping you run your Startup Huddle, and they're volunteering, and they're playing different roles in the community to be supported. So that's what Startup Huddle is. This is kind of, I just realized this is the wrong deck. That's why it's, but we're gonna need to change the deck because this is our old one that we're not using. Sorry, but that's, like we said, there's a 6-minute pitch and a 20-minute Q&A, and that is the Startup Huddle structure. Yeah, Oh, this is yours. All right, guys, give us 1 second because we definitely need to change this deck around and I don't want to confuse you. But what I think we should do at this time is you guys can talk about why you're doing Startup Huddle in your community and I'll change the deck during that time, okay? Awesome. Do you want to go for, we'll just pass the mic. You guys know who's talking. What? Yeah, go.
Hello, everyone. It's a big pleasure to be here at the GEC event in Bahrain. My name is Mansoor Mujtaba. I've been associated with startups at a very early stage in my career. I used to work for startups. 2 of these startups were US-based startups. And back in that time, around 2011 and 12, the overall ecosystem in Pakistan was in its infancy. So even when I used to go back home, my mom used to ask me, I work for a startup. Like, she used to say, what's a startup? But right now, we have more than 500 startups. I work for one of the premier incubators in my country, which is the National Incubation Center. We induct startups after every 6 months, around 20 to 25. And after the close of the year, we graduate startups. So when the opportunity for the Startup Huddle was presented to me by Yuval, I understood that this is something that we really need. Because we were running a lot of programs internally, but we weren't running a program externally which allows us to communicate with entrepreneurs, early stage startups from all over the world. So since the facility and the position I'm in is surrounded by good entrepreneurs and tech enthusiasts, I thought that it's a good idea to maybe build a platform that all of these people are together at. So the idea is that the early stage startup gets to talk about his or her idea, and we've built the audience in such a way that you get good questions by people who've already done it before. So let's say you're facing some sort of difficulty at the early stage of your startup, and maybe someone in the audience who's faced similar challenges before can actually help you out with that. Previously in Pakistan, there were platforms, but there wasn't a platform like the Startup Huddle. And overall, we've done numerous events. One of the reasons why I'm here to talk about Startup Huddle, I would encourage all of the people in the audience to understand what the Startup Huddle is. Try to start it in your home country, because ultimately, this builds into something bigger than just a Startup Huddle. It becomes a community, and a community that's sustainable. So it's not just a community where you're trying to do it one-off. The idea is to do it again and again and flourish these entrepreneurs. I'm going to be sitting in the audience. If any one of you wants to come and ask me some questions of how I did it, the structure Yuval has already mentioned. This is the structure we follow. And also, another thing, a very candid confession about Startup Huddle is that it's not very formal. So you can talk your heart out. An entrepreneur always goes through a lot of struggle in his life. So we give the entrepreneur a platform where they can openly bounce off ideas with the relevant people in the ecosystem. And it's not just fellow entrepreneurs. It's also people from the academia, universities, some of the similar verticals you're working in, and probably trying to make an audience with the relevant vertical. So you get good feedback. I'll be in the audience. If anybody wants to reach out to me, ask about how we do our Startup Huddle, I'll be very glad to help. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. I am Gilles Lewat. I am the managing director of GN Cameroon, and I'm the global facilitator of Startup Weekend event. In Cameroon, we have organized today about 23 separate events in Startup Weekend, using many locations to do that. In my country, there is no entrepreneurship education in the school curricula. So we use Startup Weekend to demystify entrepreneurship, to help people move one step forward in launching a business. And in our case, we have successful best startups who have come on stage, who are now running a business thanks to the program that we have developed together. My main question now is, because me, I know that. With Startup Weekend, we developed a business model competition. We help people to pitch idea at the beginning of the competition for 59 seconds. We select the best pitches. We put teams together as teams of startups, and they compete the whole weekend from Friday to Sunday's afternoon. And in Sunday evening, they have a jury with a pitch of 5 minutes and 5 minutes questions. And at the end of the pitches in front of the jury, we can determine the best startup for the competition. So my own worry now is to understand the model of Startup Huddle. Is it a pitching competition? Is it a business model competition? I want to know what it's all about, first thing. Second thing, we are really worrying to launch, let's say, an international colloquium on entrepreneurship education in my country to help people know how to teach, to know what is entrepreneurship, to teach entrepreneurship, and help young people to develop, to change themselves from job seekers to wealth creators to job creators. So how far can we use Startup Huddle in these perspectives? We are really interested to know, please.
Thanks a lot for the question. Kim is here if she would like to answer this question. Overall, just a broad spectrum information about the Startup Huddle.
If it's okay, we'll do Q&A at the very end.
Okay.
Right now, we'll bring up
Renee, please.
Yeah, so we're going to hear from people who are running Startup Huddle right now. Okay. And then at the end, we'll do Q&A, open Q&A with the audience. So right now, we'll just do veteran Startup Huddle organizers.
Okay, thanks. Are you going to stay here? My bodyguard? My bodyguard. Hello, good afternoon. I will try not to repeat the same things that you have heard. But in Bolivia, in South America, in Santa Cruz especially, we had a custom that the last 16 years, 14 people got together every Wednesday to have lunch. And we invited somebody to talk about his life or her life. We did it for 16 years. But we were all friends classmates from high school. Then with another group, every 2 Mondays, we got together and talk about marketing. Everything about what's going on in the market. But after those years, a Startup Huddle appears in our life. And became like an answer to something that people that is already working, that already have a startup, that is almost 1-2 years having troubles every day to build up a company. So Startup Huddle has the answer on that. First of all, what we decided to do is get involved, learn about it, and start inviting 2 persons, male and female. We tried to balance. But at the same time, we invite people that we already knew about what's going on with the companies. We talk to the company with the entrepreneur and say, what are your problems in your company? Tax, marketing, financing, maybe human resources or technology. So we invite people that was related to that. Young people, students, but at the same time, businessmen and people that give services. So when we had the first presentation, was excellent, because after 6 minutes, the 20 minutes questions and answers were so powerful to start listening the answers that they were looking for. So I think Startup Huddle is going to have a really good impact in our community, because we usually hear that you are working for people from 15 years to 24, people that is already thinking an idea like Startup Weekends, Get in the Ring, and others. But what happens? We don't have an answer to these people that is over 25, or maybe they already have a company. So what I think the best position that we're going to have in the future is that if we try to do it every week, and trying to put 2 people in front of 10, 20, 25, or maybe more, it's going to start going mouth to mouth, saying, go over there because you're going to start listening real things. Not only experience that is really powerful and they make a lot of money, but you're going to start listening to people that is having problems, people that wants to get answers. And when you start building a community in that way, you start doing a relationship between entrepreneurs and also businessmen that they can complement. I think that's the best key of everything. Trying to do a complementary work where from one hand you learn and from the other hand you teach. Thank you.
Hello again, it's Veronica Smith from Mandurah in Australia, and I've been asked to give you just a very brief report on the impact that Startup Huddle has had in my location. So although the impact is yet to be measured accurately, I'm measuring it based on the degree to which it's filling a gap. So as a business person and entrepreneur in my location, I realised that business people were very well looked after and supported. So if you were in a micro business or you're an SME, you had access to a lot of resources. But where I perceived there to be a gap was in that support specifically for startups and for those of us that identify as being entrepreneurs. Startup Huddle is a program that specifically addresses the needs of the startup entrepreneur, and in our community I'm hoping for it to become an integral and sustainable component of a thriving entrepreneurial ecosystem. So the 4 key areas that I believe we are making an impact is, first of all, because the focus of support is on the startup entrepreneur as opposed to support as a micro business or SME, our presenters have all reported that presenting at a Startup Huddle and seeking help from the community has significantly helped them achieve their goals. Secondly, it provides a platform for educating my region on entrepreneurship and its significance in the economic development of that region. I believe there is a lack of understanding that a program such as Startup Huddle will help to address. Thirdly, it is a safe and nurturing professional environment for like-minded entrepreneurs to engage, connect, and be inspired. And not just the entrepreneurs, but those in our community who are seeking to support entrepreneurship and startups. So that audience component is actually a really critical part of its success as well. And lastly, I believe that the fact that Startup Huddle is not owned by anyone in particular, it's actually owned by the community. So there's no agenda, there's no egos. It really is a team effort, and it builds trust amongst the wider business community as well. So those of you that are in here thinking about whether Startup Huddle will work for you, please, feel free to have a talk to any of us that are here today. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alessimo from Johannesburg, as mentioned. We've already hosted over 5 startup huddles in Johannesburg, and it was quite a hit when we introduced this GEN program in Johannesburg. I think one of the reasons why it was a hit because of the GEN brand and the Global Entrepreneurship Week events that we've hosted in Johannesburg for over 6 years now. What the impact we have experienced with hosting startup huddles is to try and encourage entrepreneurs to accept failure. So what we did with our program is that we would get entrepreneurs to initially talk about the things that they have failed at doing, along the challenges that they face in their businesses, and they crowdsource solution from the audience just like this. And the audience gives them feedback based on what they're sharing with their failures and their challenges, and they can then go and implement this in their business as soon as they walk out of the room. But also what it has impacted in our Johannesburg community is to be able to bring different stakeholders into the events that we host every month, and that's created the opportunity for entrepreneurs to access community stakeholders that they generally wouldn't be able to access, which has created market access opportunities for a lot of the startups that have come there, but has also created opportunities for businesses to actually do business with each other. But most importantly, creating a safe space, like everyone here has mentioned, for entrepreneurs to talk about their failures, but also to encourage them to be able to find solutions on how they could extend their businesses further or to work and collaborate with other people. So it's been an awesome experience, and I'm happy to share the lessons learned that we've experienced in Johannesburg. And through hosting it in Johannesburg, there's been other cities in South Africa actually that have been really interested in doing startup huddles as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I'm Kim Lane. I help start Startup Huddle chapters around the world. Huge thanks to all of our veteran organizers who stood up and told a little bit about their story. So we're going to do an actual Startup Huddle demo to kind of give you a taste of what this looks like in real life. So at this point, this is a monthly program, and we kind of think about, people actually have said this program is sort of like church for entrepreneurs. So a place that you can come, have this really close-knit community of people that you relate to, sort of your tribe of people, and be really vulnerable about the problems that you're facing. So before every Startup Huddle, we like to remind the audience that this is an inclusive space where it's a safe space, where the entrepreneur has the ability to be vulnerable, kind of share the problems that they're facing, and that gives them the opportunity to look to the community for help. It also gives the community a chance to look for a way to help them to build that ecosystem. So I'm going to bring on our entrepreneur, Jairo Trad. Jairo is from Argentina. He was the 2018 Entrepreneur of the Year in Argentina, so a fantastic story. He actually does work in my home state of Arkansas. And so we're going to have him share his story at the end. So this is a 6-minute presentation, 20-minute Q&A. So we always ask the audience to please think about things you want to ask him. This is supposed to be an educational experience for all parties. Normally we would ask you, and you're free to do it here too, tweet about it on social media, tell people what you're learning, tell everyone about the amazing things that Jairo is doing. And I'm going to pass it off to you.
Thanks, Kim. Hi, everybody. I'm Jairo Trad, CEO and co-founder of Kilimo. I'm extremely happy to be here since I'm originally from a small town in Argentina that has more or less the same people than this room. So this is a lot of people to present to. This is real. A few years ago, I was with one of my co-founders. We had just went bankrupt with our previous company. And we wanted to create a company around agtech because agriculture is 1/3 of Argentina GDP, so that made sense. But we had a problem. We didn't know anything about the farms. Besides my own family farming experience, that's a small farm in the middle of my town. So we took our car and we drove 50,000 kilometers all over Argentina to interview farmers. We met with farmers all over the country. Argentina is a big country. So we interviewed with farmers all over the country. And after doing those interviews, we learned that the irrigation problem, how the farmers were managing and deciding how to irrigate, was a big problem that they had. And about that, according to the UN, by 2030, half of the world population will live in a water-scarce area. And I believe that many of you here are kind of worried about that, maybe saving some water at home. But while an average household uses 100,000 liters of water every year, an average farm, oh, what happened with my pitch? An average farm uses 2 billion liters of water in the same time. But don't misunderstand what I'm saying. Farmers are extremely worried about water use. And that's why they have tried every solution available. They have tried, for example, these soil moisture sensors, where you have to dig a hole in the ground, spend a year-long calibration process, and then you get this beautiful chart where you don't understand anything about what to do next. That's why the most used method for decision-making in irrigation right now, according to the USDA census, is fill the soil. You go to the ground, you take a little bit of soil, you feel it, and you decide what to do next. And that method is better than nothing, but this leads to 20 trillion liters of water wasted every year just in the US. That's why in Quilimo we develop an accounting system for water. We send a team to the farm and we take an initial soil sample. So we know how much water the farm has today. We use satellite data and weather data to model a number that sounds extremely complex. That's called real evapotranspiration. That number means how much water that farm is using on that day. So we have initial state, how much water we use, and we ask the farmer for rain and irrigation data. And with that information, without any type of sensor on the ground, we can tell how much water you have on the farm through the entire season with less than 5% error. Also, we think that farmers deserve applications that are nice to look. So our app is extremely simple. They have a panel where they can see how much water they have on each field. They have just 3 buttons, and if we can, we're going to make it just 1 button. And they receive the actual advice in plain text. Irrigate half an inch in the next week. Some of our numbers, we have been active for 5 seasons now. We have 90% retention rate. Farmers are renewing the service year after years. And not only that, they are prepaying for the service. If you know a farmer, you know they don't want to prepay for anything, and they're paying it in advance to hire to use our software. Our average ticket per hectare is $10 per hectare per season. And this year, we're aiming to get up to 15% of the total irrigated area in our country. We're already covering 7% of the total irrigated area in our country, and we want to double that. And we are operating in 6 countries: Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, Paraguay, and the US, and Peru, sorry. Our next step, I love something about this Congress. They didn't try to make me install another app. You go to a Congress and they try to make you install something in your phone. I hate installing stuff on my phone. And with our team, we thought about why are we making our farmers use another app? That's why we're developing a text-based approach of our solution. And with just 3 clicks, you get your irrigation advice via text message. And we want to deploy that on smallholder farms. I believe many of you guys are from countries that have small farms. And that's our next step. We're expanding in Chile, Peru, but we also want to go to India, Pakistan, where there are millions of farmers that are willing to use a simple solution to irrigation management. And our next step is also water footprint. Our technology also works to measure live water footprint of crop production. The crop that was used to make anything that you eat is 99% of the water footprint of what you are eating. So measuring and tracking the water footprint of, I don't know, the barley that is used to make beer is the initial goal to reduce that water footprint. So we're working in a solution for that through our corporate partners. We're looking for more corporate partners, so if you can help, I'll be happy to get your full help. But besides everything else, what is most important for Quilimo is that just with 100 farmers, last year we saved 15 billion liters of water. So the impact that we can have if every farmer in the world is using our solution is huge. Please help us achieve that. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very, very much. So this is when we open it up for Q&A. We really like to encourage questions like, how did you get to where you are? What are challenges that you've overcome, et cetera, back to those kind of the vulnerable type questions within reason. So we're going to go ahead and open it up. If you would say your name and where are you from when you ask your question. Who wants to kick it off? I'll start. What was... You have one? You have one? Oh, perfect. You have a microphone. She has one right there. Okay.
All right. So, Michelle Samuel. So my question to you is, I didn't see it on the slide, but what exactly is the product? What does it look like?
I show it, I believe. Maybe we can go back to the slide. Back. No, I'm broken your slide. It's okay. Our product is the service that we provide is a text-based recommendation. So we have a model. The model how much water you have in your farm, if you're a farmer, of course. without anything on the ground, and we could provide you the recommendation via text message or an app. That works for farmers that have irrigation, and they need to manage their irrigation better. That's mainly our product. So I show you like an app, but we're also moving toward a text-based solution where they don't have to install anything on the phone.
A very interesting product, and I think you should also consider Africa because we do have small-scale farmers there too. But one thing I wanted to find out though was you mentioned that it was a text-based approach. So what is the cost to the small-scale farmer with regards to using that kind of approach?
Something that we have found in the last few years is that farming is bad business. I mean, they are not making that much money. It's more like a cultural approach right now. So what we're looking for in the next few years and in the future of the company, how we make the companies in the supply chain business of agriculture to pay for the service. For the small-scale farmer, we're working with some governments, especially in Peru, where they have some issues with contaminations of the water. And there we're working with the government so they can pay for the solution for the farmers. Because, and also, for every $1 that our current customers are paying, they're getting $4 back. So we always try to create solutions. Our solution is around the payback, because a farm is a business. And if you don't have a clear and also it's a very risky business, extremely risky business. The risk in a farm is that anything can happen because it's an open, you don't have a ceiling that can protect you from the weather. So we try to provide a return on investment that is good enough for the farmer to pay us, but we see somebody else down the supply chain paying for the irrigation management solution. And that is what's going to happen with most of the agricultural technology solutions, because farmers don't have enough margin to pay for technology. That's the case.
Question? Hi. So at a more personal level, what was it that drove you to want to create a solution in this particular industry?
I don't know if I have an answer for what drove me. I always felt the need to create stuff that people use. That's something that is extremely common between me and my two co-founders. I have two co-founders. The first company that we have, we created a product that nobody wanted to use. And in this second iteration of a company, we decided that was going to be that creating something useful and desirable for the customers was going to be the main driver of our solution. That's why we focus mostly in creating a product that has the lowest barrier of entry, and people can try it, and that has a higher addictability factor. People feel compelled to keep using the product. So creating stuff that people use is our main driver, and we're going to make it simple. And it has to feel almost stupid. You know, every time we talk about this theme, we talk about smart, stupid solutions, because they have to be smart on the back, but on the front has to feel like extremely, almost dumb. Why nobody tried this before? It has to feel dumb. And when we hit a small increment on the product around that, it always feels like, why didn't we do this before? Because it has to be like simple and clear and stuff. That's our main driver, creating stuff that is simple and people want to use.
Hi, I love your ambition to take your product around the world. I just wonder what your biggest challenge is to achieve that goal.
As always, talent. I mean, our biggest challenge is ourselves. I mean, I have an investor that is a guy who went through several startups, and he tells me that it's always your fault, and that's the case. It's always my fault. And my biggest challenge so far is how I transform myself to learn faster and be better. And we found out this year, and I can tell you this. This year we found out that we were holding, the co-founders we were holding back in hiring people that was smarter than us. And that was something that happens to every first-time co-founder, where you don't want somebody else who can take over the business. And now I'm all about that. Let's bring the smartest people that we can get so they can do the work and we can leave this company and create the next one. But also, and there is this tale of this amazing co-founder who goes from nothing to this billion-dollar company. And there is very few, and that's extremely unlikely. I mean, somebody who can run a company in a garage and can also run a company of 3,000 employees, it's very unlikely that is the same person. So we have to remake the story about there is a place where you as an entrepreneur has to say, okay, I need somebody else who can run this, and I can go and play another role in the business. And I believe that's my main goal right now, how we create a management team that can make this company that is $20 million now to a $100 million company. And that's hard and expensive too. So because smart people is expensive, so that's really hard.
I have a follow-up to that question. So I think being the entrepreneur of the country is quite an incredible platform to stand on. What is your main message? And what if you're utilizing that platform to share a message with entrepreneurs in the country? What would that be? In other words, like, what is your main learning as far as being an entrepreneur that you want to share with other people?
After winning the award of the Entrepreneur of the Year in Argentina, I got like 50 to 100 interviews. Something crazy went down there, and I felt really challenged because I don't believe in Entrepreneur of the Year. I don't believe in somebody, just a person being something amazing. I mean, people is amazing, but nobody's a superhero. We just have human people. And I have a poster on my house with the comic book, the cover of the comic of Superman is Dead. And that is kind of the message around our company right now. And into the future is, there is not one Entrepreneur of the Year. It's always a team sport. And if you don't behave like a team player and you don't think as a team, and my team is not only my company, but also my city, my community, my city, my country, and it's always a team sport. For example, we play a lot with government, and we really care about playing a lot with government because everything that we can give back to the government comes down as economic development and new opportunities. So it was a great platform. I tried to talk about on every interview that I had that it was not me, it was so many people, my co-founders, my investors, my customers, and that guy that had a coffee with me and helped me think about that stuff, and that guy that made that small introduction, it takes a village. That's kind of what we feel around this.
Yeah, I'm Guillem Maris from Spain, and I will we have been supporting an entrepreneur facing the same challenge about water and saving water. I would like to know how you connect, if you know other people working with the same kind of technology, the same kind of challenge in other countries, if you cooperate with them, if you learn from each other or not.
We were, until last year, we were more like a water efficiency company, and we are, at the beginning of the company, we founded the companies around the SDGs, so that is something that is ingrained in what we believe. But we were mostly focused on efficiency because efficiency means more money for our customers. Right now, we're pivoting towards water footprint, and there are several solutions, but nobody's paying for that. That's the main problem right now. And that's what happens to our customers. They don't get more money for being more efficient with water use. And in countries like, and you feel this more in Europe because it's more clear, but in countries like, it's not that clear in Spain though, but in countries like Argentina and Chile and Brazil, when you export 1 kilogram of grain, you're exporting like 200 liters of water. And we're exporting water. And the US is exporting soybeans, and that means water. So there are several countries in this world that are exporting water, and nobody's paying for that water. People are paying for the grain that you use for the water. So there is a complex challenge to find ways to make people pay back for the water that we're exporting from that country, because it's going to be a problem, a huge problem, and everybody feels a problem, but nobody's actually making the real commitment, and that commitment is money, of course. So finding a way to doing that is a challenge that we have ahead.
Any more questions? No more questions? Awesome. So you're not finished. We end all startup huddles with asking the entrepreneur what's one thing the community can do to help them in the spirit of sharing and helping each other out. So what's something we can do to help you?
We are right now focusing corporate partnerships around water footprint. We're working with breweries and fruit producers. We have a tool that can track live water footprint for every food that you have in the supply chain. So we want to find some companies that can do pilot with us worldwide. And we can do that extremely easy and in a very cheap way. So if we can find a company that can help us do that, we're happy to get that connection.
Awesome. Thank you very, very much. So a piece of commentary before I hand it back off. Was that not really, really inspiring? So that is the power of Startup Huddle, is to hear a real story, hear the challenges, and hear how we can help each other. And so that's the power of doing those every single month. You really start to see that community of trust start forming. So huge thank you to Jairo for sharing that story and letting us be a part of your journey. Thanks.
Awesome. All right, so you got a chance to see what a Startup Huddle program looks like. That's it. That's what you do every time that you do a Startup Huddle program. Some people do that twice, so now they would have another entrepreneur come up and another Q&A. It depends on your community. If you have enough people that like to do 2 a month, some communities are smaller, and if your community has the patience to do 2. Those are the things to think about. But how many of you have Creative Business Cup? You guys do great. Future Agro Challenge, I think a few people have. Other pitch competitions, different pitch competitions. So the Startup Huddle is the anti-pitch competition. And so all those programs are really important and they're great for the community, but at the same time, we want to find an opportunity for the community to not necessarily always be winning prizes and getting stressed out and like practicing and perfecting the pitch, and looking for time to just do what we just did, which is just get to know each other, offer help, and kind of just spend time together and share your ideas. So I guess that's one of the questions was, what's the difference between pitch competitions and this? And it's really that there's no winner. Like, no one wins at the end of this. There's no ultimate, you don't move on to the next round. It's just a chance for you to spend time talking about what you're up to in your community. Can we get the other presentation back up? Thanks. So now we're going to move into what it takes to start a huddle in your community. At this point, if you have any questions, just raise your hand and we'll answer them. And if you want to save them for the end, we can do that too. The first thing we want to talk about is, what does a successful startup huddle look like? So we don't care if you have 10 people in the room, or if you're like South Africa and you have like 200 people in the room sometimes, because they get really, really big startup huddles. We want the people on the stage to feel that they were supported, they were respected and heard and helped when they leave. So if there's 10 of you sitting in a circle and the entrepreneur left saying, I have 3 business cards of people who can help, or someone just gave me a really good idea, I need to go home and think about it, amazing. If you have 100 people in the room and the entrepreneur got survey results that they really needed to prove a concept to go back, great. So it's not about the number of people that show up, it's about the entrepreneur on stage feeling like they got what they needed from the opportunity to be on stage. Does that make sense? So sometimes I'll ask you how many people are coming, and that's good for us to know, but it's not a fact that it's successful, because there's lots of times where you get a lot of people in the room and they just eat your snacks and drink your beer and then they go home and they weren't very helpful. And those people, they're not really necessary for Startup Huddle if they don't want to be helpful to the community. So that's when you think about success metrics, that's what we're thinking about. Next question, or next point is about when you get started. How do you get your team together? So a lot of times, since this is the Gen program, we'll have a GEW host or an MD or someone who's already running another program come up to us and say, we want to expand a Startup Huddle. Or we have volunteers in our community that have asked what they can work on, and we think Startup Huddle will be a good program for them. So one way is to look for volunteers in your Gen community in your country who are trying to get more involved, and try to create a group of them to start Startup Huddle. Or if you want to do it yourself, which is great too, look for new people who don't have projects they're working on that have expressed interest, and invite them in to be part of the planning committee and to get started. So some people host it within their event calendar for their co-working space or their accelerator or whatever group meetup that they have, while other people are just a group of volunteers that are getting started, brand new. Both of those are okay. It can be housed within a company, and it can be its independent organization, its independent group. It doesn't need to be an established nonprofit or anything like that. It needs to just have a few people. It doesn't work when you're doing it alone. It only works when there's 3, 4, 5 of you coming together and saying, let's make this happen. And we'll talk more during our onboarding when you really get started about what those people's role would be. But really, you need someone to recruit the startups. You need someone to look at the logistics, the venue, the coffee or tea or whatever you're serving. Someone to help get the crowd there. There's an MC, so there's a few different roles. And we'll talk about those roles when we really dive in if you're ready to get started. But it's not a one-person plan, or it's not a one-person project. So when you come to us and say you want to get started, one of the things you should think about is who you're going to work with on this, either at your organization or with a group of volunteers. Cool? Next thing is finding a venue. One of the things that works really well and is very important about Startup Huddle is doing it at the same place, at the same day, at the same time. If you're doing it every week, if you're doing it every month, it doesn't matter. But if you're gonna do, room 5 at 3 p.m. on Thursdays, on the second Thursday of every month, that's magic. It works extremely well. I know there's other programs like Venture Cafe that do every week at the same time, the same place. And I'm sure you guys also feel like people know where to come, they know where to park, they know what to expect, they know when it ends. It creates this feeling like we were talking in the last session again about church for entrepreneurs, or like a place you begin to create a habit around it, and then it's just a way to know what to expect. So the venue, it's really important when you're thinking about a venue to think about not just where you can do it that week, but where you can go month over month. And so when you're speaking to people about hosting in their venue, say, can we use this for the next 6 months on every first Tuesday of the month, or whatever it is, okay? Some important things to think about the venue are AV, so projectors, microphone, screens, chairs, a place for people to comfortably sit. We don't want people standing the whole time. Doesn't go over well. We want them sitting and really listening and not really chatting with each other. Another thing to think about is your huddle is gonna hopefully grow over time. So somewhere that can, maybe in the first huddle you have 10 or 15 people, and the next huddle you have 25, and the next one you might have 28. You don't want to change locations every one of those times. You want to stay in the same place. So where can you be that you can grow? It's okay to move from one room in a co-working space to another room if you have to do that, and that could be one of the solutions. So that's what you want to think about when you're thinking about venue. Outside of the venue, you want to think, is there parking? Are my entrepreneurs going to need to get here? Are they going to need to park? Can we find a place where they don't have to pay a lot for that? Or are we close to a subway stop or a train stop? So you want to think about how it would be easy for them to come to be part of what you're doing, to reduce the barriers of people being able to be involved. That's venue. Next thing is sponsorships. So there's kind of 2 ways that you can get sponsorship support. One way is actual dollars from sponsors. So the way that you get for every one of your programs, an accounting firm wants more entrepreneurs, great. We're happy to share, your brand at our event. It's going to cost $10. hopefully never ever agree to that, but it costs, $100, $500, whatever. It depends on the country and what you're doing, but kind of just get them giving you a check. And then the other option is in-kind sponsorship. In-kind sponsorship can be, and is often, food, coffee, tea, or printing, t-shirts, things like that. Now, the things you might need money for are the snacks, the food. We ask that at every Startup Huddle you have a coffee or tea or some drink. You don't need food, but drink's really important because it creates a little bit more of a belonging, homey kind of feeling. We see that, and it works in different parts of the world, have different cultures and what they want to bring. And then some countries don't have any signage, any t-shirts, anything, and they're doing amazing. You do not need to print anything. But if you want to, if you're like our chapters in India, you can print a 30-foot banner, get t-shirts, get mugs, Michelle's wearing her St. Lucia shirt, and you can do the whole thing and get flyers. You're welcome to do that. And so if you want to do that, you might need a printing sponsor or sponsorship dollars from somewhere. If you're housed within an organization, then you might you might get some budget from the organization, and that works well too. We don't, at Gen, the program that you're running doesn't cost anything. So we don't ask you for any fees. You don't have to share the sponsorship dollars with us. There's no money that's exchanged between us and you until you decide to expand throughout the entire country, and that's a whole other plan. So talk to me if you want to do that. But if you're just running one Startup Huddle, don't worry about it at all. It's a free program for your entrepreneurs, and it's a free program for you. So you don't need to spend any money, but if you are raising money, that's kind of what you can spend it on, or that's why you might want to raise money. Next is identifying and training presenters. So presenters should be 1 to 3 years into running their business. Some might be a little older or younger in their business journey, and that's okay. Different communities kind of do it differently, and that's fine. But what we're looking for is a peer, not a rock star. So we're not looking for the best entrepreneur in your community. We're not looking for the one who made the most money, or the one that's been doing it for the longest, or the one whose brand is the best. We're looking for that entrepreneur that's going to their co-working space every morning and grinding away and hustling on building their business. We're looking for someone who's in the thick of it right now, not someone who's telling you the story of their success. If you know Startup Grind, for example, Startup Grind is all about telling the story of someone who succeeded and them giving you advice. This is about, I'm in the now. I'm talking to you about, after this presentation, I'm going to go pitch an investor. I'm going to go do a sales meeting. I'm going to go rework on my business plan. That's the kind of entrepreneur you want. Someone who is ready to share and to be open to when people ask them questions. That's also really important. And then someone in your own community. So we want it to be you don't fly people in, people don't come in from afar. If they're coming in from 45 minutes away because you're in a small town, totally fine. But they're not supposed to be someone who is from out of town. So keep that in mind. We're helping people in our own community. Cool? Alrighty. And then once you ready to get started and you're ready to look for that person, you want to promote this opportunity in as many places as possible to give access to as many people as possible to have the opportunity to present. So if you're running a co-working space, you can host this in your co-working space, but we highly encourage you, and we really ask that you promote it outside of the co-working space too. So this isn't just for your members. This isn't just for the people in your accelerator or in your class. It can be housed in your class, it can be housed in your accelerator, but that you're sharing it with other universities or you're sharing it with other co-working spaces, because it's a community program. It's not just a closed program. So a good way to do that is to post the opportunity to present on social media, maybe create a Google form. People can apply, or they can email you if they're interested. Another way is to reach out to professors, venture capitalists, and mentors, and say, hey guys, we have this opportunity. Send us people who you think would be interested, or tell your community about this. We'd love to have them present. And then what you want to do is go through and look at them. There's kind of three things that can happen. One is they're not a fit. They don't have a scalable business, they're a small business, they're not a startup. they're older than 3 years, or they just started, maybe they're not in the right time frame. They're very nervous about sharing their idea. They're not ready to share it in front of a crowd. Not a fit. That's okay. Maybe they're a good person to come and sit in the audience and help. Second option is they are not a fit right now, but maybe they will be in a few weeks, in a few months, maybe even 6 months. Those people, the first ones, we say thank you, but no thank you, but we want to make sure that everyone feels welcome to come as an audience member and that they don't feel hurt. So you really want to think about the way that you reject in a polite way. Second one is, hey, we're not ready to have you right now, but we'd love to keep you on our list and check in a few weeks or a few months when you're done traveling. It seems like you're going to be out of the country a lot because you're, raising money, or you're selling your company, you're selling your product, which is great. Third is, you're a great fit, we'd love to have you. We suggest having people a few months out. Like 1 or 2 months. If you're doing weeks, definitely a few weeks out, but if you're doing months, 1 or 2 months out, that allows you to promote them and also let them know that they need to be available and arrive on time and be ready with their pitch. So that's the second piece. The third piece is, once you've looked at the two, that you're not saying totally no and you're not saying wait, you're saying we're ready to work with you. You might have 4 or 5 companies that you're ready to work with, and you keep them in your queue, kind of in your list, because you'll see that you're doing 2 a month. It starts, you have to constantly be recruiting. If you're doing weekly, you really have to be recruiting. If you're doing monthly, you kind of have to generally keep an eye out. When you figure out who is your presenter, 2 weeks before, we recommend meeting with them and listening to their pitch and maybe doing some practice questions with them. And one of the benefits is they get to work with you on practicing their pitch and kind of tightening it up and working with you on answering questions well. So meet up with them and work with them on their presentation. And then we recommend adding them to your flyer or your promo so they get extra visibility. And you'll see a bunch of promo items. In the next slide, Michelle, surprise, your face is on the slides. These are some of our kind of ideas of how people are getting the word out about Startup Huddle and upcoming sessions. These are what I would call our non-traditional creative ones. So I know Veronica made like a nice background for hers and posted it on social media. Michelle is the queen of this. She was on TV. She was in the print newspaper. And there's a Turkey print newspaper, Startup Huddle in Turkey that did a print newspaper as well. So that's one way to get to a different type of audience that maybe you don't get through social media all the time. And this is some of the more traditional. You'll see people always have the Startup Huddle logo, and then they have the person who's pitching and the date, time, location, and you can create your own flyers, and people usually create a different flyer for every month, sharing the presenter and reminding people where it is and who the sponsors are. So these are some examples. There's lots of pictures on these slides because we want to show you kind of how this all comes to life. But it's important to promote the actual entrepreneur that's speaking, and then it's also important to actually invite people that you know could be helpful for that entrepreneur. So when you're doing that pitch practice with them, sit there and think, who in the community would be really helpful to them? And instead of doing one-on-one intro, another one-on-one intro, another one-on-one intro, you say, hey guys, next week we've got Steven presenting and his company would really benefit from your help. Would you come and listen up and be a participant? Then maybe those people will come and show up for Steven, and Steven doesn't even know that you're setting him up for success by bringing all those people, and you just saved your time doing email intros and everyone can meet Steven at the same time. So that's the promo can be social media, it can be these TV, print magazine, not the different ways in your community where entrepreneurs hear about what's going on. We suggest putting it on some community calendars, putting it in email lists, WhatsApp groups. There's lots of ways, and we'll talk more about exactly how you do that in the onboarding session. So that's a little bit about marketing. I know that over time, the most important thing is word of mouth. So people have a good time, they'll always come back to hear more and to be involved in more. So that's the promo. And I think that's it for now. There's more to discuss, of course, but we don't want to get into all the granular details on stage because we know you are going to have questions, and we'll talk about each individual city when we're on your onboarding call. But the way that it works is, if you want to apply to be a Startup Huddle organizer, step one is find one of us that's an organizer right now, or me, and just chat with them for a little bit. Make sure the program makes sense for your community. When you're ready to get started, go to startuphuddle.co. And it's very clear at the top. It says apply to be a Startup Huddle organizer. Fill out the Google form. I'm going to get an email saying you filled out the form, and I'll contact you and we'll set up a quick chat. We're just going to make sure that it's a good fit for you and for your community. Once we do that, we'll set up an onboarding call. That call is an hour long. It's with me and Kim, or one of Kim's peers that has been doing Startup Huddle for a few years. Everyone's been doing it for a few years right now. They're all from the United States, from the 1 Million Cups program we mentioned. And we'll teach you how to do Startup Huddle in your community. We have a playbook that we can pass along that has all the instructions, and then we're gonna let you go off to the races. We'll share that you're launching. Actually, Jessica, who just walked in, will share that you're launching through the network. She's on our marketing team, and that'll be really exciting for us to be able to share that we have more Startup Huddles launching throughout the community. And then you can use that press release back in your community to share that you're launching. And then you can get started. Like I said, there's no fee, there's no cost or really anything more than the investment of your time and energy and getting the community together. So that's really the process to go from where you're sitting now to getting started officially as a Startup Huddle organizer. Cool? We are now ready to take any questions. And then once we do the questions, we're going to do a group picture with all the organizers that are still here. Does anyone have any questions right now that we can answer? I know that was a lot of information. Yeah, so if you email us today, you probably won't hear from me until tomorrow, Friday, because we're here. And then we can get on an onboarding call as soon as next week and get you started. Really, next week we'll probably do an intro call where we learn about what's going on in your community and make sure it's a fit. And then the week after, we can get started. You can definitely have a Startup Huddle during the month of May, if not June, if you get started today, and if you kind of have all the pieces in place. If you need a little bit more time, that's totally fine as well. What I would recommend doing is letting us know still that you want to do it, and then if you need a little bit of time to get it together, that's fine, and we'll know to follow up with you, or you'll follow up with us. Any other questions? Alrighty, so the huddle organizers will be taking a quick group shot, and then we'll be here to answer any questions that you have. And on the screen is my email address. If you're interested in getting started, you can email me. If you have questions, you can email me, and we'll go from there. Cool. Thank you, guys. All right, do you guys want to come on stage?